morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I wonder what goes through your minds when you hear a CV that says someone's been involved in standardisation for more than 30 years. I guess what goes through your mind is this guy's going to be really boring. Well, I'm going to try and disprove that, because actually standardisation isn't boring. I can assure you it's far from that. Let me first say, though, on behalf of 3GPP, how pleased I am to yet again come to LTE India. This is the 8th event. I have been to them all, and I've witnessed a lot of change in India, coming here every year to this event. And this year we have yet more change, because for the first time we will have a 5G panel. And you might think, well, why are we talking about 5G when we really haven't deployed 4G? But enough of that. I think we will learn a bit more this afternoon about why it's important for you to at least be thinking about that at this stage. So where do we stand with LTE deployment? According to the latest figures from the Global Suppliers Association, we now have 494 LTE networks live, LTE and LTE Advanced, in 162 countries. That's set to rise to 550 networks by the end of this year. We now have more than 1 billion LTE subscriptions worldwide. So I think we can really state that LTE is mainstream now. This has taken 7 years. First networks were deployed in 2009. So over a 7-year period, we've seen this technology rise to over 1 billion subscriptions. In the panel that follows, we will learn about how many of those are actually in India, and I don't think it's anywhere near that number. Enough about LTE and LTE Advanced, though. 3GPP is putting the finishing touches to release 13, which will see the introduction of LTE Advanced Pro. So this is the next step in the evolution of the LTE family, and it brings some quite interesting new functionality, which will be quite compelling in the marketplace. LTE was initially designed with traditional mobile users in mind. What we did not predict was the large number of non-traditional users that will be wishing to make use of our technology. And this is strongly reflected within the Release 13 package of results. Critical communications is a very good example of that. A whole community of people who came to 3GPP and said, actually, LTE would be great for supplying our police, fire and ambulance services if only you were to make a few changes. Well, today's critical communications networks are very robust, they are very secure, but they're inherently narrowband, and it's not really feasible for those systems to become broadband by the very nature of their design. So even if they could be adapted, the market size for critical communications is not really that large. So would you get enough investment to design a whole new broadband critical communications standalone system? Probably not. So the critical communications market came to 3GPP and said, we want you to adapt LTE to our needs so that we can have the sort of broadband services that every child on the street has in many countries. That all sounds really great, but the more knowledgeable amongst you will realise that critical communications users have a whole load of services that mobile networks were never designed to deliver. Mission critical voice, push-to-talk services, group call, where you can have maybe 5,000 users in a big group if it's a large incident. The ability to talk from one to another without network support, all the things that police, fire and ambulance services are quite used to doing in their traditional networks, and now they want LTE to do that. Of course, that was a significant piece of work, and it's taken several years for 3GPP to adapt their networks to do that. But I'm pleased to say that in Release 13 we have completed mission critical voice. We are delivering now standardised services to aspiring critical communications users, and the first responders in the United Kingdom, in the United States and in South Korea are the first to have declared that they will be deploying national systems based on these standards, and my feeling is that you will see many other countries follow and take advantage of that new functionality. It's not just about critical communications though. Release 13 also focuses very strongly on the Internet of Things. We've done much to deliver a narrowband version of LTE specifically aimed at the IoT market. IoT devices, maybe probes or sensors that are in very remote locations, for example, monitoring the humidity in agricultural fields that are hundreds of kilometres from the farmer. These devices have to have long-range communication capabilities. They need to be very low energy consuming. They may not even have an electrical supply to them, so if they're battery operated, the batteries need to last about 10 years. This really necessitated a rethink of the LTE narrowband design, which is what happened in release 13. So we then have an offering now for narrowband LTE specifically for the IoT market. But indeed the GSM networks, which we've known and loved for nearly 2 decades now, GPRS is also a very good radio for IoT devices. The problem is that GPRS wasn't really very efficient from an energy point of view. It wasn't really very efficient from a protocol point of view. So we've also updated the GPRS profile in release 13, specifically aiming at low power, narrowband, small data delivering IoT devices. So 2 very compelling offerings then for those in the IoT market. Interestingly, in 2013, Ericsson predicted that there will be 20 billion connected devices by the year 2020. They did talk about 50 at one time, but I think that got scaled back to 20 billion devices. And interestingly, we had a 5G summit at the ETSI headquarters 2 weeks ago, and we asked the audience the question, do you believe that there will be 20 billion devices by 2020? And it was a pretty emphatic no, we don't believe there will be 20 billion connected devices by 2020. But there will be 20 billion devices at some point in time, maybe 2025, 2030. So it's going to happen. It's all about preparing for this eventuality, knowing that one day we're going to have to face enormous amounts of connected devices and being ready for that. So we seem to have 4G pretty well under control from a standardization point of view, but we're already talking about 5G, and we will have a panel session later today to debate that. At this time last year, we really didn't have any idea what 5G was. It was all very vague. I'm pleased to say that now we have a very clear understanding about what 5G is. The timelines are set, the standardization plans are in progress, and later on this afternoon we'll try and give a bit more insight into the development of 5G and what we can expect from it. But putting the engineering side to one side for the moment, it's rather interesting to hear what the OECD says about 5G. They believe that 5G will bring significant economic gains, increasing GDP, creating many new jobs, and digitising the economy. But for this to be achieved, OECD is saying that you can no longer treat this as an IT or an ICT project. This is something that government has to treat across all of its departments, because 5G is about engaging the transport sector, engaging the manufacturing sector, not treating this just as an IT venture. So as we have our first thoughts about 5G and the way forward, this really will necessitate a rethink in government about how we approach a project which is supposed to be bringing all of these industrial sectors into one place. And this will have certainly profound regulatory challenges too. The OECD also says that trust is the critical element in 5G. And it's interesting that they held a survey amongst their members about trust. And of the survey they conducted, 64% of respondents said that they are more concerned about trust today than they were 1 year ago. Now this means that we really do have a problem, because if our subscribers, our users, do not trust the network to which they're attached, then how on earth can we really develop that system to become mainstream? So security and privacy moving forward then start to become 2 of the most important things, certainly in the government's mind, and certainly in the mind of those who have to design networks, to ensure that from a technology point of view they are secure and they are robust. It would be wrong for me to conclude my address this morning without mentioning TSDSI, Telecommunications Standards Development Society India. This is the standards body recently created and was the end of a very, very long process. At least I've been involved in that process for more than 10 years, discussing with Indian industry how we can get a viable standards body created here to take care of India's industry needs. And we were delighted when this body was created just over a year ago. What I'm pleased to say is that TSDSI in the short time that they have existed, have become global players. They are now partners in 3GPP, they are partners in 1M2M, and in Delhi last week they even hosted the Global Standards Collaboration Conference, which is, if you like, it's the United Nations of standards bodies, which meets once a year, and TSDSI did a great job of hosting that last week. So within a very short period of time, your domestic standards, telecommunications standards body has become a world player. It's very prominent on the world stage, and it's representing India in the international standardisation environment. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to an interesting day, and I'm sure you are too.